Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Improve Podcast. Good morning. This is the official podcast of Classic Studios. I'm your host, Chase Collins, and I'm an aspiring screenwriter. And I'm documenting that journey of screenwriting and all of my other different projects on this podcast. This week on the podcast, we have my lovely sister who's joined us. She and I have been working on a secret project together. It sort of started out as my sister's small Christmas gift for my dad, and then once I got involved, it became this whole other animal, and I started imagining all these different directions that this idea could go, and I was so excited. And I'm really excited to share it with you because there's a lot more to come. There are time codes in the description if you want to jump around, so go ahead, feel free to do that. But with that said, what are your goals for this week? I hope, this week is treating you well so far. We got, what is it? It's into February now. We're making progress. We're like 10% through the year. Isn't that crazy? I guess maybe not 10%. We're like 9%, but pretty wild. Man, January flew by for me, and I think I got almost nothing done. But if you want to hear about my goals for this week and an update from me on that, be sure to stick around till the end. And with that, I will catch you all on the flip side. All right. Peace.
Improve Podcast. Improve Podcast. Improve Podcast.
I've actually teased this project a couple of times. For those of you who don't know, my sister is actually one of the reasons why this podcast even exists. She's one of the sort of like the my whole family is creative, but Amber has this amazing creativity about her that's sort of under the surface. You don't really know, and because I know my sister so well, I see the creativity that's behind her eyes, and she has these amazing books for her scrapbooking. She's been scrapbooking for all of her adult life, and that's been so amazing to see it evolve, and now it's turned into this Shutterfly compilation of like dozens and dozens of scrapbooks that are some of my favorite gifts that I've ever received. She gives them to me for Christmas, and they're so beautiful and so well done. And me and her have actually started collaborating on a new project that's completely her idea, but I've been helping here and there, and that's what I've sort of teased along in the podcast. I've said, if you've been listening, that I've been helping my sister out with a secret project, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And Amber, do you want to talk a little bit about what this secret project is?
Sure. Well, and thank you for being so complimentary of me. I think you are pretty creative yourself, and I couldn't have finished this project without you. You've been such a helpful source to really play off the ideas and really get it all solid into an actual product, which has been really cool. But the project was it's really just a little gift for my daughter. It's just a little children's book, and it all was inspired from her, just watching her grow up and get attached to her little plush stuffed animal, a fox who she named Ribbit.
But Ribbit the Fox?
Ribbit the Fox, but calls him Mr. Fox. But if you ask him what his name is, his first name, she says his name is Ribbit. And that's what kind of spurred along the idea for a story. And, the Christmas season's coming along. I was like, well, I better attach myself to that vague idea and let's get something out there. And as it was coming together, it's really served to be just this really sweet way to capture a part of her childhood. And I definitely wanted to get it done when I realized that it was just this precious moment or this idea that she could enjoy now and for me to enjoy for a lot longer later.
Yeah, because she's in that stage. She just turned 3 like 3 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
So she's really in that like imaginative play stage, and she's creating these little stories with her stuffed animals.
Yes, it's been really fun. Like, she's been attached to Mr. Fox for I guess over a year. I think around 2, she really got attached to it. You never know what your kids are going to get attached to, because she's got tons of plush stuffed animals, but this is the one that she's attached to and has to have Mr. Fox for bedtime, as well as Rainbow Blankie, and this is just her critter that she has to have, and she'll bring him out for playtime. And as you know, from 2 to 3, she started having a couple of imaginary friends as well, and I would hear her interacting with them all, and I you can't really tell what exactly is happening. I think at one point she was making muffins with them in her little play kitchen, and her imaginary friends were Gopher, Bat, and Chipmunk. And then I got a little video of her when I asked, like, so what is Gopher? What kind of animal? And she told me, Gopher is similar like a bat, but not a bat, but similar. And I think for the story, we opted for flying squirrel because that seemed to be the closest thing that could be similar to a bat.
Right. So it's Mr. Fox, whose first name is Ribbit, but Galen always calls Mr. Fox. And then there's 3 other critters. Gopher, who's a chipmunk.
Gopher is, well, we don't know, similar to a bat, but we decided for, woodland critter characters that maybe a flying squirrel worked with possibly her imagination.
Right, flying squirrel. And then we have Bat, who is a bat.
Bat, who is a bat, and Chipmunk, who is a chipmunk.
And those are sort of the characters that she's been playing imaginatively with.
Mm-hmm.
That's fun. And that's was sort of the basis and the foundation for this story, this children's book that you wanted to create. And how did it evolve from that point? So you had this, your daughter playing with these toys, and then you decided to turn it into a story. So, because just a book is much different than like playing with, stuffed animals and stuff. How did you make that leap from it being a playtime thing to becoming an actual story that you wanted to tell?
Well, on my phone, I'll take a few notes here and there when I see my daughters do something funny or cute, and try and incorporate it in like a baby book, or just trying to write down any kind of milestone.
In those scrapbooks. Yeah.
Sometimes I'll include them in a scrapbook. And I think that's another project down the road, just for maybe giving them for graduation or. But anyway, with those notes and with Christmas coming along, I thought like, that vague idea of, I could write this children's book for Galen. That's really just how it started. Like, let's see if I can tackle this project. And then I talked to you about it too. And then on one of my layovers, like the one I'm on now, we sat down and just really let's just try and write the story. And I had that video also where Galen was telling me about Gopher and what he is, and she went on to talk about how Gopher and Bat and Chipmunk were working in Pa's shop, and that they were going to build a pickler triangle for all of us to play on together. And that is how the basic storyline came about, and then you and I just sat down and got it done.
Yeah, so that was the basis. Was there was in Pa's workshop, so that's our dad, Grandpa, and he is a huge workshop guy. Like I don't think Mom and Dad have had their cars in the garage in 6 years, because Dad has taken over it and turned it into his workshop. There's 1,000 different saws and machines and tables and drills that I have no idea what they're called, but that's his workshop, and it's called Pa's Workshop, and your daughter really latched onto that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's she was able to even bring that into her imaginative play.
Yes. Well, and Pa did actually build her a pickler triangle and would bring her in. And
what is a pickler triangle?
It's a simple climbing design that's meant for indoor play for kids. It's kind of a Montessori style climbing apparatus. It's very... It's
that's fit for ages like 18 months to 7, 8 years old.
Yeah.
Type of thing.
I don't know if it's really meant for older kids even. I think it's meant for more the toddler stage.
Oh,
but
really?
of course, Pa, he wants to make it
Versatile.
sturdy for all ages.
Yeah.
So ours is actually pretty substantial in size, which is actually really fun, and it's cool to see how my daughter can just climb up all the way to the top, and she's since used it for lots of different imaginative scenes.
Right. I mean, it's got to be big in order to fit all of those critters.
Oh yeah, they all have to fit on top.
Yeah. So you came to me with this story idea, and of course, a little bit of background about both of us. We're both writers. I think that's how I like to describe myself, as a writer, right? That's why I started this whole project, was because I want to write screenplays, and I started off with writing novels. I wrote, this stupid giant book when I was in high school, and Amber was a big inspiration for that and really coached me through a lot of the, like, not dirty work, but like the due diligence you have to take in order to properly structure and outline a fantasy novel, because Amber's really good at doing her research and making sure she knows where her story goes. I think, what's it called? I think the method is called pantser, when you just sit down and start rambling on a page and then suddenly it becomes a story. That's what Stephen King does. That's what, famous authors do. But Amber is not that way. She likes to know her outline. She likes to know where the story's going before she really puts final pen to paper. And that's something that I've learned. I only outline now. I'm in the middle of outlining 2 screenplays, and it's why I haven't written them, because I'm outlining them, because I want to know what my characters' motivations are. I want to know where the story's going, especially following the hero's journey and the 3-act structure. I'm a huge fan of both of those, storytelling devices. And that's sort of when you came to me with the story, or this premise, right? The premise was Mr. Fox and the Woodland Creatures, they go to Pa's workshop, and that was the story. That was the premise. We didn't really know where to take it from there. And so that's when we got to sort of pull in our experience from writing and outlining these novels, because Amber's written novels too. I don't know if I've mentioned that.
Well, I like you said, I like to organize, so I have a lot of ideas, and I've got a couple of chapters written here and there, but nowhere near like you've actually completed a manuscript. Not many people can say they've done that. But it really did help. I loved that we got back together, because I've taken a really large break from writing since kiddos and just life getting busier. But it helped for sure coming back to those outlines, and it was also nice that this is such a small project that it was very doable to do in an afternoon. At least the fundamental outline for the draft.
Yeah, and that was a lot of fun, because you and we got to sit down. We fortunately had a whole afternoon to really sit down, talk about this story, what we wanted these characters to go through, which of course are inspired by real people, right? Or at least one of the characters are real, right? Amber's daughter. But that was a ton of fun for me, because I've never coached someone in that way before, where we're both collaborating on it, but I was really focusing on what if we make this a real story with stakes, and there's a twist in the middle, and it's Chase, this is a children's book. We don't need to do all that. But it's what if we did? How much better or more intriguing or more engaging could the story be if we really took the time to implement some of those, standard narrative devices, like the hero's journey, like the 3-act structure.
Mm-hmm.
And because it wasn't, it's a children's book, right? We're not writing a 60-page book or and this, when we say children's, Amber's daughter is 3 years old, right? That's our target audience right now. So we're talking about maybe 10 pages, right? And if you break that up into a 3-act structure, it's okay, so we have our introduction. Our first act is going to be maybe 2 pages, and then we have 6 pages for the second act, and then 2 more pages for the third act, and suddenly we're at 8 pages, right? I did my math wrong. But, it can be pretty short and we can keep it tight. And so that was a lot of fun looking at that structure, for me at least.
Yeah, it helped keep us organized, and the story really did flow. It was fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We got to...
It was great bouncing off ideas, too, and just seeing how, well, then this could happen, and then this can happen, and then, what happens here? And, drawing on... I was really wanting to make the ideas as true to what I had seen my daughter do in her imaginative play, and also with drawing on the Pickler Triangle. These are things she actually talked about, and these were the climax too, with like the drama that happens that actually happened, which was neat. And I think, again, what was just going to be like a little cutesy story that I could have written, and just laminated and pasted together as like something silly. It's neat that it's going to have more of a professional feel, and the bigger, I guess, goal ended up being just having a little bit of her child captured in a little storybook. So
yeah, that really,
it's a bonus.
Well, and that's what I so appreciated about working with you on this, was being reminded about, like, no, I want it to be true to what the experience was, what it was actually based on, the real life, because that's the whole point, is to capture a piece of this childhood.
Well, but also with, especially with you and I working together and having different goals, even in the same project, that was interesting. And I love how you want to go even bigger. Like what I was just trying to make, I'm just trying to make a little story here. But with all of your big projects that you're working on, we ended up working on several different projects at the same time with the same idea. I don't know if this is something you even want to talk about right now.
Yeah, no, we should definitely talk about it. Do you mind if I spoil a bit of the story?
No. I feel like we've kind of talked about the whole story overall.
But... Well, not really, though, because we haven't even talked about the big twist in the middle. That was a lot of fun for me, because that was something that I inserted, sort of. It actually happened, though, so it was very natural, and I think that's why we adopted it.
Yeah, it was totally your idea, too. I wasn't even going to go there.
And so the story is, right, when Mr. Fox goes to Pa's workshop to play on the Pickler Triangle, I was talking to Amber, is like, okay, well, that's not really a story, right? It's just...
something has to happen.
Yeah, it's like, okay, we have characters at point A, and they need to get to point B, and they do that. He's like, well, that's pretty boring.
That's great. Okay.
Yeah, like, that's
what
not really
now?
a story. That's, like, what a toddler might imagine. That's what they would do. It's just like, oh, then they'll play.
Oh, yeah, and they'll repeat that same thing over and
over again. But if we could maybe introduce a twist in the middle, that was what we had come to, right? So we introduced the characters, we took them into this new world of Pa's shop, and then there has to be a midpoint twist, and like, what might that be? It's like, well, they're playing on the Pickler Triangle, like, what could happen? It's like, well, in real life, do you want to say?
The Pickler Triangle totally collapsed.
Right, and this was the Pickler Triangle that Pa had built for Amber's daughter, and it collapsed while we were playing on it. So that's drama right there, and kids love drama, and that's something that we could have easily written into the story, and I'm so glad that we did, because then what do you do? What would these characters do, right? Amber's daughter's there, Mr. Fox is there, we have Gopher and Bat and Chipmunk. They're all there on this broken Pickler Triangle, and so what do these characters do in that situation? That was something that really propelled us into that, the second half of the story, into the third act.
Yeah, it ended up being a pretty neat example, too, of lots of big emotions that could be happening, and trying to be sensitive to how everyone in that scene is feeling, and how to overcome a challenge like that, or a situation like that.
Yeah, and I wasn't even thinking about that when we were writing the story. I was just thinking about the drama of it. But then you were saying, like, well, this could be a good opportunity for these characters to show empathy, or they're in a workshop with dangerous tools, like maybe we can teach some safety precautions or safety measures that should be taken. Those are good lessons to sort of implement, and it's never too early to implement, or start teaching those types of skills like emotional intelligence or just basic safety. So that was really, I think, brings the story to another level.
Yeah,
Adds
it was really fun. I'm really just tickled by the whole process and the story that ended up coming into fruition. Just it's really cute again, like just seeing a part of her childhood just captured, and we used a lot of phrases that she has said in the past or still says even now. She's still only 3. So it's really fun.
Yeah, and so that is what we did one afternoon when Amber came down to visit me in Orlando again, and we had the opportunity to write this. Oh man, I totally took us on a tangent. I'll circle back. So yeah, we got to write down this story, and while Amber was sort of, we were working on this story in my, fever brain state. I'm sure if you listen to the first couple of podcasts, you can see how I start going on tangents and rambling. But I was like, well, Amber, what if we make this project even bigger? Like, what if we turn this short story into a short film? And that's when, because I'm a screenwriter, right, or an aspiring screenwriter, so as Amber was writing the story to her children's book, I started writing the script version of it and adapting it into a film, or what could become a film one day. And that's what I was already invested in the story, but suddenly it was like, oh, this could be a Classic Studios project. Amber, would you want to talk about this on the podcast? Hey, how about all of these things? And the podcast wasn't even a thing at that point. I mean, we'd been talking about it, but it wasn't released actively yet. So that was a lot of fun for me, and I think...
Yeah, so in that afternoon, we wrote a first draft for a children's book, had a first draft for a screenplay, had ideas for, a topic for a podcast,
and sequel stories.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, we continued because, if it was going to be a TV series someday, we needed to have
that's right
more stories, or if it was going to be a trilogy, I think we also thought, like, ooh, the children's book could be a trilogy, part 1 of 3 or 5, who knows?
Exactly, yeah. So once we locked down the story, then it became, okay, so we have the words written down, or at least a brief outline of what this story is going to be. And then we wanted to turn it into a children's book, right? Like, that was the whole point of this. And that's, I think, where you learned and I learned where the work actually starts almost, right? Like, in an afternoon we got to write the story, and it was a ton of fun, and then suddenly it was like, oh, children's book have pictures.
And both of us like to, dabble in the arts, but I mean, I'm amateur. I think
at best, total amateur over here.
High school art was about all I did, and then the rest is dabbling at home.
And that was... well, from what you've told me, having to learn, like, drawing thumbnails again. Like, I haven't drawn a thumbnail in, 5-10 years maybe, since high school. So
yeah, so with the whole process, after, finishing the overall narration, or at least having the first draft, it was moving on to the next step of compiling it all. And the medium I normally work with is just Shutterfly, so I was thinking, I'm not printing this professionally, so this will just be, that's the only way I know how to print a little book.
Right,
and so that's where I went to, and then I thought, well, like we were saying, we dabble in the arts, so then you mentioned maybe looking into freelance illustrations.
Yeah, hiring someone.
But then just a quick Google search, this is
expensive.
Yeah, it was either, it ranged from about like $50 per image, or, $500 base for just one book. And as much as I love my daughter,
right,
I was not planning to spend $500 on a little book. So, I got out my colored pencils and started working on the illustrations myself, and they're not nearly the professional quality, but it's a children's book, but that definitely took a lot more time. But it was fun. It was a good little project to do. And then from there, I did do some research on how to illustrate your own children's book, just a couple of YouTube videos, and got the concept of having the thumbnail sketches first and then going into, harder sketches and then tweaking things from there and then putting color to it and sticking with one color throughout as you go through each picture to kind of save a little time.
Oh, wow.
So that was a neat tip that I saw. And what else? And then from there, getting that hard copy, because I don't really do that much digitally. I'm really not in the new generation of tech savvy people.
Yeah, digital art is a different ballgame.
Yeah, and I don't have an iPad or anything, but you stepped in and helped out from there, because I don't have a scanner either, so the best I could do was take a picture of each image, and then that process was a lot, going from the hand drawn to digitizing to seeing that, okay, some of this we can't quite fix even in the digital form, so we got to go back to the original piece, take some more pictures, getting the lighting just right, because it's just hard.
It impacts it.
Yeah.
It impacts the quality of the photo. Like if you have crazy shadows or like harsh lines, and those are all things like you don't think about on first time you're taking a picture of a picture. It's just like, okay, snap, let me plug this in so I can upload it to Shutterfly. But it's like, oh no, the quality really isn't as good.
Right. Well, yeah, and with Shutterfly, I know it so well, so I knew that in taking a picture, whatever that background is, it's going to show up as a square. And you can't erase the background like you can in like Adobe Photoshop or something like that. So you'd have to do all of your edits before bringing it into Shutterfly. That final image needs to be that image, and it will operate as a square.
Yeah.
You can put like overlays of frames, but those frames are squares. They're not like a perfect circle, and so you have to work with the background color and the color of whatever overlay you're using. Anyway, it's not a perfect medium. I know there's better software out there to actually compile digital art with, narration. But again, Shutterfly is just all I know.
Well, and that's what I really love about this project that you're working on is like, yeah, you're a mom with 2 kids, a husband you got to take care of, all of these, and you're working too. Like you're here on a work trip. This is, so you have a lot going on, especially between like preschool and taking care of kiddos and everything like that. You're doing this very much in your spare time, whenever you have a free second. So learning a brand new software or learning a brand new way to import photos is like not possible given the amount of time you have and bandwidth. So you're using what you know, or you're taking, okay, I can spare 5 minutes to learn how to make sure the pictures I'm drawing myself are as good as they can possibly be. But it's not like we're trying to produce the best children's book ever. We're trying to make a cute, fun little story for
right. Yeah, and it's keeping that in perspective, like how much time are we really going to be dedicating on this, and to make it just still special, still, I think also the key objective was to still have an air of professional quality. But still get it done in a timely manner that's not exhausting all of our other resources and time. And and even with working with what we knew, within that realm of knowledge, it's already there on how that still involved a lot of troubleshooting, and it was also great combining, you're more tech savvy than me, and you have that Procreate app, which I don't have an iPad, but I ended up snagging Dad's. And you taught me how to do that, and you sent me a video of it, of what you were doing on the iPad, which I don't even know how to do that. And you sent it, and then I learned really fast, and I think after that it took me a day to finish, because all the illustrations were done at that point. It was just removing the background and making it a better I guess, a white square to work with, a pure white square to work with to import into Shutterfly and have the Shutterfly page be white so that the photo and the page and the words all flowed seamlessly without it looking like this was a photo taken of a photo that we're putting on a page.
Yeah.
So it has a more professional look, even though the illustrations are so terrible.
I think they're really cute, actually. I like the style, too. It's very stylized, and I can recognize your artwork. You know, I have some of it hanging up right now. It's
my dabbled work over there.
Yeah. So did you, when you, and this is, I'm just curious, when you imported the photos, did you import each layer individually, or did you just do the whole like image that you drew? I forget.
Well, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but with Shutterfly, and I think with most softwares now, like even like Word and Excel, like they have layers that you can bring to the front or push back or bring forward backwards, you know.
Yeah.
So Shutterfly has a similar way of operating, and then you import photos and you put whatever photos that are imported in that little, you know, thread of photos, and you would take that and put it onto a page. And then you have text boxes too that you would use. I don't think you can write right on the page. I think it operates always within a text box, but you can expand that, and you can layer the text box to photo.
And you can have multiple text boxes, so that if you wanted to break up the sort of the alignments and everything of the text, you can do that.
Yes, yeah, just create more text boxes. Well, and I think before we figured out the Procreate solution, I was attempting to create that seamless flow by, on the page that is, with just using the one photo and expanding it across the page and putting the text box layer on top of that, so that the whole photo, the whole illustration was the picture.
Right.
On the page, I guess. It was the page. But the lighting just never worked out. I couldn't quite, you know, even trying to use, you know, natural light or even the bright light in the bathroom. I tried doing that, where I guess the bathroom is a good space, or at least it's like even brightness, even if it's, you know, fluorescent lighting. But I could never get a good amount of lighting to where the picture, the illustration would come back even across the whole thing. It looked dark in one section versus the other. Just couldn't achieve that. And I'm sure I could have gone somewhere and had it scanned as a digital copy, and that probably would have looked a little better, but it still would have had that grainier feel, you know, even with
the paper texture.
And then once we took away the background with Procreate, I think that ended up being a better solution, because then just the image itself has that grainy look, which I'm sure there's ways to eliminate that too, but you know, we're calling it good. And yeah, it's, I think, in its final stage of editing, and I should have it printed out before Christmas.
That's so awesome. Yes. And I love that you're using the skills you already have. You're not spending chunks and chunks of change on, you know, a professional illustrator, and even not Procreate. Well, that's affordable too. Yeah, it's you know, like a $5 or $10 app on the App Store that you can use, and gives you some pretty good quality, I guess, digital artwork utilities that you can leverage. And you're waiting to finally order the package until Black Friday to get those deals too. So like, you're really being considerate with like the time you want to spend on this, the story you want to tell, and the amount of money you want to spend too.
Yeah, trying to be a little frugal there. But it's fun to be able, I'm thinking I'll print off more than one now, since, you know, we've kind of got a mention of Paw's shop, so it might be a good little gift for Paw for Christmas, and then maybe some of the grandparents would like it, because again, it really does captures my daughter, you know. It's a little piece of her imagination, and that to me is the most rewarding part about it. It's so fun to read that and see little phrases that I know she said, and I have little hints of Rainbow Blankie in there, which I don't really talk about in the narration, or it's not talked about in the narration, but it's there in the illustration. And I know that I'm excited for her to see it, and even later on, for her to look back, because who knows if Rainbow Blanky and Mr. Fox are actually going to stick with us forever.
Right.
But we'll have this memory showcased right there.
Well, and even, I think that's great, like getting the book for multiple people, because that Rainbow Blanky, that came from grandmother.
Yeah.
Our grandmother. So she'll be able to recognize that too, and that'll be, I think, really special for her to see. So what do you think is next for Ribbit the Fox, the adventures of Ribbit the Fox?
Well, I mean, after the big print off, I think that's going to be my big success there, and maybe we'll bring it back. I know Classic Studios has been pushing to have a couple sequels.
Yeah, we're gonna option it for a sequel.
I'm looking into negotiations.
Yeah, right. I'll put in a good word for you. Yeah, I'm definitely interested in turning it into something like a trilogy, and maybe compiling those, because like we said, this book is short, right? It's a children's book. How long did it actually end up coming out to be? What's the final page count? It's like,
I think with the photos in there, and I've like spread it out, it's about 20 pages, but that's with pictures on some, so it's about 10 pages probably. I remember we shortened it too because I didn't want to keep drawing, so I cut out a whole section because I didn't want to have to draw two more pictures.
Yeah, that's right. So
the screenplay is longer than the actual book.
Of course, yeah. Oh my gosh, and I think you cut out the scene for good reason, but I'm so excited for it to hit the film. It's gonna be so much fun, Amber. Oh my gosh.
The deleted scenes.
Yes. That's actually a really cool like trivia question. It's like, this was actually in the original draft of the book, but they only put it in the movie. I think that's really fun. But yeah, so I think turning it into a trilogy, not necessarily like. Well, actually, kind of. So having, the first story being Pa's shop, with the Pickler Triangle, and then having another story centered around, your daughter and Ribbit the Fox and Rainbow Blanky and all these little woodland critters, and then a follow-on story after that. And I think compiling all of those into one story, one like final book, so that it could have like 3 stories inside of it. I think that would be a really good way to present it like for publishing at some point in the future or something like that. I think that would be a lot of fun. And then also like thinking about it from like a television perspective too. If we wrote 3 scripts that are 8 pages long each, that comes out to like 24 minutes, 24 pages, because it's a minute per page is usually the rule. And so then we have a 24-minute TV show, which translates to like a 30-minute show with commercials and stuff like that, which I think would really do well from like a marketing perspective. And we could pitch the show to some Disney Plus someday. Oh my gosh, wouldn't that be a dream?
Yep.
That's my vision for your story, Amber.
I love it. I think it's so cool how you've taken this idea into and making it, seeing all the possibilities. Yeah. I think that's really cool.
I'm really excited for the next steps, and I can't wait to physically hold it. That's something that's always a huge step when you print off your book and you have it like in your hands. Like I've printed off, a couple of screenplays that I've written, and it's like, oh man, look at this, giant waste of paper. No. Look at these, this, story that we've written. And for you, it's so much more than that, because it's drawings, it's the narration, and it's, a part of your family even. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be really awesome. I'm super excited to read it someday.
Yeah, well, and I know that you've read it.
I know I've read it, but the final product.
Oh, right. But, we were looking into the actual self-publishing website, too. We were just sticking with what we knew with Shutterfly. But that could be the next step, I think, to make it more accessible to family and friends who want it.
Yeah, that's
right.
If
they want it. Assuming that they might want it.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think this is, and like, it goes back to the story that you wrote and the lessons that you instilled in it. Like, it's so much more than just like, oh yeah, a story based on a little girl's imagination. It's so much more than that. It really has important lessons about empathy and emotional intelligence and safety precautions. Like, these things that I think are valuable and marketable towards a much larger audience. And if we can keep that theme going throughout like the next couple of stories, I think it would be really valuable to other moms of little girls who are 3 years old. And yeah, maybe self-publishing it someday under Classic Studios or something like that. We could start our own production house, Amber. We could do it all. But I think that might be the end of the show. Do you have anything else you want to say?
No, thanks so much for having me on board, and thanks so much for helping me with this project too. I'm excited to see the final product and watch the little girl read it. It's gonna be special.
Oh, it's gonna be awesome. Well, thank you, Amber, and thank you everyone else for listening. Whoa, hello everyone. I am back. I hope you enjoyed that podcast. I certainly enjoyed the conversation with Amber when we were recording it and listening to it back as well. I thought this was a great conversation. And Amber, she's just so thoughtful when it comes to her gift ideas. And this was, just a really special one that I'm so grateful to be a part of. I'm glad that she asked me. And I think the book came out really well. It's awesome. It became a Christmas gift for several people in the family, and they all really loved it and enjoyed it. So huge kudos to her for getting all of that done. There's so much work involved with, self-publishing your own book. And when you don't have all the experience in the world or all the money in the world, it can be a lot. But Amber was able to pull it off. So I'm so happy she was able to do that just in time for Christmas. And yeah, that's actually why we had to release this podcast, in February, because it was a Christmas gift, and some people who were getting this gift as a gift listened to the podcast, so I couldn't spoil it for them. So I chose to delay putting this out until everyone had received their gift and all of that. So I hope that is acceptable. As far as an update from me and all of my goals and projects, so I am I'm continuing to work on my screenplay slowly but surely. That thing will get written. I swear by it. I've also been working actually a lot on music. I've been just looking for another creative outlet, I guess, because I've been struggling with this screenplay for so long. But it's been fun to, flex some different creative muscles to maybe get the gears turning in another way or something like that. If you would like to get in contact with me about your goals or projects you're working on, shoot me an email at theimprovepodcast@gmail.com. I want to give a shout out to Green Bean for all of our musical intros and outros, and a shout out to you for listening, and thank you for sharing, and thank you for leaving a 5-star review. Or if you'd like to leave a 5-star review, it's the easiest thing in the world. It's right in the app on your podcast service of choice. You can just leave that 5-star review and we'll get it read out on the podcast. With that, thanks everyone for listening. I will catch you all next week for another episode of the Improve Podcast. Goodbye.
Podcast.